All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about scaling aerospace production by digitizing and automating AIT. That's going to be a demo of Connektica. And my name is Benjamin. I'm the head of sales at Connektica. In my last role, I was the director of partner enablement at Acumatica. That's an ERP. I've made my whole career before joining Connektica in the ERP space, helping SMB to enterprise manufacturers digitize their processes. And so I've been working on finance processes, logistics, obviously manufacturing. I've recently joined the company, and so we thought it would be a good way to show that it's very easy to use the platform if the new guy does the demo. This is the agenda for today. So for those of us who don't know us, we're going to do a brief intro about Connektica, then the product, then we're going to spend most of the time on the demo. We won't have the time for Q&As because we wanted to show you a lot of stuff and keep it to 30 minutes. But if you have any questions, feel free to hit us on the chat or send us an email afterwards, and we will get back to you. All right, so Connektica, very simply, we were founded in 2019. Our mission is to help aerospace and defense manufacturers scale production quickly and efficiently. We're located in Montreal and Toulouse, and we've raised roughly 5 million euro in funding from both private and public sources, and our latest funding round was in January of this year. All right, and so what do we do? Well, we are a SaaS provider. So our platform is a cloud assembly, integration, and testing platform to manage the entire process. So it's an all-in-one platform. And so what it does, it's going to help you digitize and automate complex processes. It's going to help you collaborate and monitor centrally and in real time your production line, your different production sites, your suppliers, because it's a cloud solution, so it can just connect to every different areas on the globe, collect that data, and then gives you that real-time view. It can also collect data on the IT process, so how much time you spend on different parts of the process and where investment would potentially be needed and beneficial, but also on the component design where you can compare in-flight information to the testing data. And one thing obviously that is very important when you talk about space, aerospace, defense is regulations. And because all the AIT data is and lives in Connektica, when it comes time to generate those compliance report, and that's what we're going to show you in that demo, it is very easy. It's just a click of a button. All the data is there. You can choose to show what you want, what you don't want, and you can really customize that so that compliance is just very easy. And all of this is done obviously in a highly secure SaaS environment because we're in sensitive industries. All right, so let's switch to the demo. First, I want to set the stage with a typical situation what we see with our customers. So that's obviously a fictional company founded a few years ago, raised Series A, secured major contracts. And the situation therein is that, well, that's a good situation. They need to increase production because they've won contracts. And so they need to go from tens of units to hundreds and then potentially to thousands. That's an aggressive timeline. That is something that we see with some of our customers. So, some might have a bit less, but that is a pretty common situation for us that we see. Another one is you're doing project-based manufacturing and you want to switch to more new space products off the shelves. And so then we're going to help you transition to that mass manufacturing. So that's, again, typical situation. Want to move from a few units to hundreds or even thousands. Now, before Connektica, Acme, how they were doing things, and again, that's what we see with a lot of our customers, they were using paper-based procedures. And so they were highly dependent on tribal knowledge and their best AIT engineers. They were spending hours collecting data, updating compliance reports, also looking at the data for the engineering team to improve the product. So all of this was desperate, in different bunch of systems, instruments, and so that would take them a lot of time. And again, there was a disconnection between engineering and the shop floor because of those delays, but also just of different tools, different processes that they're following. And so then when they speak to each other, it takes time. Information is sent over email or in person, and there's idle time and processing delays. So all of these, processes and habits, they're fine when you're producing a few units. But as you scale, obviously that's a lot of inefficiencies, and that makes the scheduling of production less predictable, cost also less predictable. So there's a lot of optimizations we can do there with digitizing this process. And so often customers like me, they're going to come to us and they're going to say, okay, I need help to, number one, standardize, because I want any technician to be able to run my process. I don't want to depend on my best engineers. And I obviously also to streamline and automate, because I'm going to produce a lot of units. I believe that there's going to be a cost optimization as well as a production cycle optimization that I can get. I want also to be able to maintain compliance, but not do it in a way that's just going to kill us. So I want automation again in that, and I want it to be rigorously done so that it's done, and I have to worry about it, but I'm also not spending a ton of time on it. And I also want to be able to reduce troubleshooting time. That's one, but also the feedback loop between the shop floor and the engineering, so that I can drive faster improvement on the product. And so here, that's more the data that needs to flow very, very rapidly, as well as information on where are the issues on the shop floor and how can we improve the IT processes or the design. All right, so now that was the situation before. Now let's go and see how things were once we looked at, once they implemented and went live with Connektica. I'm gonna stop my camera just because I'm not entirely sure how you see it, and so that I make sure that you've got the full view of the platform. Sorry, actually, I forgot a step. Here, we're gonna first start with John, our AIT manager. He's gonna define the parts to assemble. He's gonna configure the production line, and he's gonna configure the AIT sequence. So let's go. So there's some very nice dashboards in Connektica. The goal is to help an IT engineer, the production manager, the technician know where they are, where their attention is needed. You can see the progress on units being produced. We won't get into details of that today. That would be for a later time, but thought it'd be just good to cover that briefly. All right, so we said first, we want to look at the parts that we want to assemble. And so in Connektica, you can define those parts. And the reason why you want to do that is because that data then is going to be captured and is going to be used to, we execute the IT sequences to link those sequences to the exact parts. And the manufacturer, you can see the model, the serial number. So that means that at the end, when we create that report, all that data is automatically there and it's going to be available. And so I don't have to go through Excel file or some other database somewhere to gather that. Obviously, you might already have a PLM, an ERP, where that information is stored. And so this information can come from those systems, go into Connektica, be synchronized between the two, so that we gather that data and then we use it in the AIT sequences. So once you've done that, I've defined my parts, then I'm going to define my stations and my instruments. In here, you can think of your station as, your production line, your production sites, and so you can define a production line and then link to it tools, instruments, equipments. You can even put some APIs to, we did that on one demo where we ping the API of a weather channel, and then we got the temperature on a particular location. So you can really think of it as a very, very, very flexible system for the management of any type of connection that we want. And those stations you see here, so for instance, we're going to see one. I've got all my instruments that are defined there. And those instruments, I can send them controls, instructions. I can use them to collect data. And to do that, I'm going to use a driver, which you see here. So in the instrument section, I'm going to create my production lines. I'm going to link my instruments to each production line. And then I'm going to say, okay, this is the driver that I'm going to use. And so if you already have drivers, you can use them with Connektica. But if you don't have it, and we already know that instrument, the driver is already available and you can use it out of the box. So that really speeds up the creation of a streamlined and automated AIT production line. You can see also that we've got the manufacturer, part number, serial number. So all that information that is important. And again, that is going to be available in the final compliance report without any effort, right? You declare that, that's done once, then you keep it up to date, and then that flows into it. And if you have that information available via the instrument or somewhere else, and you can extract it, that can also be obviously automatically synchronized with Connektica. You've also probably noticed that you've got the calibration dates, which are important. And so you can define an expiration date. And if that date is expired, then you won't be able to run the AIT sequence using that particular instrument. And again, that information is available in the report as well. So that's how you define your production lines. And like I said, it's a very flexible system. You can see here the weather API. So you can really imagine that you can control any robot, equipment, instruments, or even just gather data from some random API. All right, so we defined the parts to assemble. We defined where we're going to do that and the tools that we're going to use. And then we're going to define our sequences. So in there, I'm going to filter by my project, just because that's a neat way to organize and to be less overwhelming when we look at it. And I'm going to look at that first sequence, which is the AIT satellite integration. In that case, you can see that the procedure is version. So I've got all the different versions of my procedure. You can see who modified them. You can see if there was a note attached to it. And we can define which version of the procedure we want to run. So that way, that makes sure that, number one, the right version of the procedure is always available on all the different production sites. But also number two is that nobody makes mistakes about which procedure needs to be run at a particular time. So now I'm going to look at that procedure, and all the procedures in Connektica are organized in the same way. You've got a setup, execution, and cleanup phase. And for each phase, you can define as many procedures as you want. For instance, here I've got not procedures, actually, as many steps as you want. And so, for instance, here I've got my assembly part in the execution, and I've got that main step. I've got sub steps, and you can really imagine that you can define that however you like. And in each step, you can have those different areas where you put instructions, images, etc. So I'm just going to show you what it looked like. So let's say measure mass. If I want to add a new steps, you can see here all the different options that you have for the particular steps that we're going to add, right? It can be a data input, data evaluation. So today in this demonstration, we're just going to show you the simple ones, but there's going to be later webinars where we're going to get into more detail about the more advanced capabilities of Connektica. So these are the manual steps, but then also these ones are the ones relying on an agent for the automated tasks that we want to run, right? Through the instruments that we want to control or collect data. And you can see also that there are plotting tasks because there are libraries available and we're going to see them. And so automatically with the data, you can generate the graphs that can then be used in the reports again. So if you do a simple step, you can add instruction, you can add an image. So, okay, so let's add an image there. I'm gonna do this one. All right. And then maybe I had some more instruction. And, you know, if I want to make sure that this goes there or over there. You can see that I can move things very quickly. I can here add an input. I can remove that. And what's nice also is because we want our instructions to be very clear for the operator, you've got this preview mode that allows you to see what it's going to look like. And so if that's not the right way to organize it, so for instance, I'm going to do it that way. And then if I don't like how it looks, okay, then maybe I want to put the image first. So it's all done very, very rapidly, but this way you can just preview what it looks like so that your procedures are really built in a way that is simple and as easily understood. So I'm going to remove that step, but that's in a nutshell is how you define the different steps involved in an assembly procedure in that case. You can then even after that decide how you move the steps. So everything is drag and drop. It is a very, again, flexible interface. The goal is for you to have something easy to use and flexible because we know that procedures tend to be quite, yes, I'm not going to save here. All right, and I'm just going to show you another procedure very briefly here with a automation in it. And here in that case, you can see that it looks very different, right? And so in that case, we're calling an agent called a worker. They have different tasks defined, so that's done through the drivers. And then you can see we can even put some parameters, and then we execute the different tasks. And so we're going to run that later, but that's how you do automation through Connektica. So you define in the instrument the driver, and then in the sequence definition, you just create steps. You call different tasks that have been defined in the driver, and then you just process the data. You can call the plotting functions of Connektica, and then that will generate all the outputs that we'll see later. All right, so you've seen how you create an AIT procedure. Granted, that's a simple one, but that's a start, right? And so with John, he moved from having static work documents to digital interactive test procedures. And also, he moved from siloed trouble knowledge to more standardized instructions. And we're going to see that they're kind of error-proof also when the operator runs them, and configuration. All right. So next we have Steve. Steve in the production planning manager, and so he wants to review the ongoing work and wants to plan the future work. So Steve isn't going to live in the configuration section of Connektica. He's going to live in the execution section. And so here, when he gets into that screen, what is very practical for Steve, because obviously Steve is very busy and Acme is doing very well. They've got all this sequence running, so it's hard to see where he's at and where his production he's doing. And so he can just go and look at all the different production sites and see what's happening. All right, so that particular production site, I can see that I've got this sequence that's running. These ones are ready to run. And this one. So you can see that for Steve, he can directly see what's going on in the different sequences, which ones are failed, which ones are passed. And then we're going to, for instance, go look at the results on this one. And we're going to be able to see what's going on, which step failed and why, and even the data that was collected, etc. Right? So for Steve, it means that the analysis of what is the current status of the production, what's going on, where people are stuck, can be done very, very rapidly. And obviously, you can also rely on the dashboards to help him with that. But we said that we wanted to schedule the work for Jane, which is going to be a technician who's going to run the sequence. So here we can see that there's already some work that has been initiated. But this is how Steve, our production planning manager, is going to initiate the work. So I'm going to select my production line, the station where I'm going to run things. I'm going to select the part number. I'm going to select a serial number. Again, that can come from a third-party tool. And then I'm going to select the sequence version that I'm going to run. So that's the one that we maintained earlier. And then I'm going to define who's going to run it. So in that case, okay, that's my name. And I'm going to initialize the sequence. All right, so Steve's job is done. And you can see that here, instead of having just like the data being spread out in spreadsheets and relying on hallway updates, you can just go connect on the platform, filter by production sites, see what the status, just double click and understand where people are stuck at which step, and after that act on it. And it goes from like a siloed AIT execution to just integrated production visibility. So now we're going to switch to Jane. Jane is going to perform the manual assembly, generate the report, run automated tests, and upload data already captured. All right, so what does that look like? So now Jane is here. You can also obviously filter by your user ID, by projects, etc. So that way it makes it easier for the technicians to find the information. And so I'm ready to run my procedure. Here I go. All right, so I've got my different steps. So I'm going to execute that first step that was defined earlier. And here I'm following the instruction that have been given to me. You can see that there's a checklist. Okay, is everything fine? I can say that's present. And you can see that I cannot move to the next step here because there's a missing information. And so with paper-based processes, obviously sometimes we can forget some information, or we can forget to write some things down, or we do it later, but sometimes it's not fine, right? So here for Connektica, unless you complete that data, the next button isn't available. So once I do it, serial number, all right, I can go. Then I've got my assembly procedures. So I'm gonna here upload the antenna data package. And then the next step, I'm gonna, enter the mass, and the system is gonna evaluate whether that's fine or not. So here I'm weighing the final assembly, and then I click on next. So the system runs an evaluation procedure. And so what's good is that's an automated way to have quality control in the assembly process, right? You can have manual quality control. That's the technician that says, that's Shen that says, okay, I've got this, I saw that, this is fine, etc. Or you can do that automatically. And now I'm going to finalize the next step. That's the cleanup. Is my workstation clean? Yes. My tools are in order? Yes. And all right. So now I can conclude the assembly. I can go, you see on each individual step, I can see what was done. I've got access to all the data. So we're going to show you that in more details later. But what I wanted to show you with this one is the creation of report. So like I said, all the data is centralized. And so with Connektica, you can just generate here, click a report. You can select a template. So you could imagine having your own logo. I'm not going to go over this because that's not necessarily very interesting, but you can fully customize it. And then we're going to generate the report. And while the report is being generated, I want to show you just something here, the data, and then you've got a tick that says relevant. And so what's interesting there is that during your AIT procedure, you might have a lot of tests that you run because you want to use that data to improve the product, but you don't want to share that with all your customers or any customer at all. And so you can define in the AIT procedure which data is relevant or not for generating the report. And so then only the data that you want is shown in the final report, which looks like this. So it's generated, and we're going to open it. You can see the logo. Here you've got all the compliance data that is on the first page. The table of content follows the sequence that you define, so as defined. And then you're going to have here, so all the steps that were being executed. And another thing that is interesting is that you can see all the steps as well as the time spent on each steps. And so that helps, obviously, what I was saying before, know where optimization is needed in the process. All right, so generated the compliance report, run the automated test. Okay, so how does Jane does that? So we're gonna filter here. We're gonna run this sequence, this one, ready to run. And so in this case, we're okay, sorry, I'm just gonna upload the image here. All right, moving on to the next step. So in this procedure, what we're doing, so we're having an RF component, and so we're putting an inrush, we're doing an inrush test, and so we want to make sure that the power doesn't go above a certain threshold, and the system does that automatically through the drivers that we saw and the function that are being called on the driver. And as we're doing that, you can see that you can directly go and see the results. So you don't need to wait until the end of the sequence to see what's happening. And so in that case, let's go have a look at what's going on. So you've got all the evaluation criteria that are available there. You can also see the raw data. So here, if I have it, I could download it. That's a CSV file that you would have. You can download it locally, and then you can have a file being generated. So like we said before, there are plotting functions that you can call, and so that makes it very easy to generate graphs and dashboards in Connektica that then can be used in the reports that are being generated. So that way you don't need to rely on Excel. Everything is in one place. All right, and the last thing that you can do is upload data already captured. So let's say you haven't already connected all your instruments, you're just getting started with Connektica, and you want to still be able to gather and collect the data and speed up the process. Well, we've got a pretty neat feature in the sense that you can just upload the data, but you can use the plotting functions. And so that means that all that work that was done again externally is done within the platform, and you're saving time there through Connektica while you're building more and more automation. But you can already start saving time. And so same thing, I'm running an evaluation procedure. I can go look at the result over there. And again, here you can see the raw data, all the evaluations that were done, and the graph that had been generated. And so that obviously can save you a ton of time while you invest in automating and streamlining your AIT process. So Jane, she moved from, just printed procedures and moving from one place to another, having everything separated and tribal knowledge, to step-by-step digital guidance with visual aids. She no longer has to do manual data logging. There's automated test result capture. And so everything is much more streamlined. We're going to very quickly go on troubleshoot because I see that I'm short on time. Troubleshoot and improve design. So let's say there's a problem with a sequence that was already started. So I've initiated one that is here. Let's see where it is. Okay. Yes, so that's the one. And let's say there's a problem while executing that sequence. The mass isn't fine. And so here I'm going to raise a nonconformity directly. Let's say, actually, and that's not the right one. I'm going to say mass is wrong. I'm going to add here other instruction. Mass is wrong. Wait. And then I'm going to update that. And so very easily, I can raise nonconformity. I can have comments on particular procedures. So as I'm working, that Jane is working, she can just post all of that. And then my AIT manager or her manager can just have a look at it through the nonconformities or the comments. I can go see, okay, that's the one that was raised, and I can start taking care of it. I can cancel it, etc. And so through that, the process is really simplified. And so we finally bridge the gap between the shop floor and the AIT engineers. And all right, so to conclude our webinar, so you can see how Connektica can transform, in that case it's Acme, their AIT workflow, right? They move from paper-based procedures to digitize and version control error-proof work instructions that any technician can run. They were spending hours collecting data and updating compliance report. Now everything is automatically captured and they have instant compliance. And finally, They've solved that feedback loop issue, the disconnection. They have really close and tight feedback loops between the shop floor and the engineering. All right, so we're 1 minute over. So that concludes our webinar. I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. Our next webinar will be on June 12th at 2 p.m. CET. And here that's going to be a bit more tactical, less demos. It's going to be about proven tactics to scale your AIT processes without valuing cost or risking compliance. Thank you, everyone, and stay tuned. There's going to be more webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.